1 o'clock, and I'm taking a short break from some classwork. I said that yesterday and ended up talking for about an hour. Yesterday was a pretty interesting discussion. Started off talking about yoga work, stuff like that, and some of my burpee community friends showed up, and the conversation just took off from there. Always interesting things to say, all kinds of topics. We ended up hitting burpees, fitness, working out, ultra running, shoes, the whole thing. Um, so I like it both ways. I like it when the conversation takes on a life of its own and we just go with it. And I like coming here with a topic and talking about it. Yesterday had a little bit of both. So today we'll see what happens. Um, Here's something on my mind: aversion, pleasure, neutrality, and consciousness. This is what the ancient yogis knew, Patanjali and his contemporaries, those who came before him as well. Patanjali is the author, or more likely, he is the person who just compiled all this information and put it in one source, the Yoga Sutras, known as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Not a complete discourse of yogic wisdom, but it's pretty deep and it can take you pretty far. And it really shows. I should grab my copy. I have several spread out all over the place. He takes you deep into the true practice of yoga. Everyone's heard me mention, most yoga today is simply fitness class, stretching, and then we throw in a little bit of breath work at the beginning, shavasana, and call it meditation, and we throw out some spiritual platitudes. I think I'm saying that right, and call it a spiritual practice. But yoga is most truly a path of life, because it is life. It's not separate from life. And if you practice Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, not to be confused with the modern class Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga simply means 8 limbs of yoga, and we have the yamas and niyamas, which are the personal ethical points, and then the larger sort of ways to conduct ourselves involving society. And then we have pranayama, and then we have the asanas. I've seen those two in different orders. And then we have meditation, taking us from one-pointed concentration, first learning to withdraw senses, and then one-pointed concentration, all the way to samadhi, all the way to bliss consciousness. Where you get, who knows? It's a never-ending path. As I always mention, Robert Saltzman, who's the author of the 10,000 Things, saying awakening never ends. You do one asana pose, you are awakening. You sit for meditation, you are awakening. You practice pranayama, and you're awakening. And it never ends. So don't expect to go from here, where I'm starting, to samadhi, to enlightenment, because it just doesn't matter. Commit to the pose. Commit to the breath. Commit to that moment sitting on your cushion, on your bench, on your chair, meditating. And that's enough. Whole world opens up from there. Now, I started off talking about aversions and pleasure, neutrality, and that's consciousness. Here's the thing. We think we're free. We think that we have a certain amount of control over life. And what the ancient yogis knew, and what remarkably modern neuroscience is showing, what we have is consciousness. And then we have my friend Lewis is here. It is what it is. Good mother freaking morning, YouTube family. Hey, Lewis, how are you? I'm sort of talking about freedom, the freedom that really can only be found with awareness. That um, we think we have this sense of freedom. We think that we're in charge. We think we're calling the shots. The thing is, as I mentioned, modern neuroscience is showing the truth of this as well. Ancient yogis talked about it before. Our senses are bombarded by information, stimuli. I always get stimuli and stimulus confused, but I think it's stimuli. Lewis says he's doing good, buddy. Had my Nespresso coffee and 2 donuts. Well, you're on your break. And you put in the work for how many months? Was it 9 months? So enjoy what you set out to enjoy. Our senses bombard consciousness with information. And it's 3 things. It either sparks a pleasurable sensation, a pleasurable point in consciousness. This is good, so we go for it. Or it is bad. This is bad. Avoid it. Aversion. Pleasure, aversion, or neutral. Doesn't do anything within consciousness. That's what consciousness registers. And it's simply aware, simply awareness. Doesn't take sides. This is it. Our senses open the door to something. It smells ham. And I don't know why, as a vegan, ham's the first thing that came to mind. For me, the smell of ham would create an aversion. I don't eat it. I don't like it. For someone else, it would create a sense of pleasure. Got to get myself a ham sandwich. I got to do it now. Can't wait. I need to first go out and buy some ham. Then I need to bake the ham. Then I need to make a ham sandwich. Maybe 2, maybe 3. That's pleasure. Our senses did that. We eat the ham sandwich. For me, it would create a sense of aversion. Man, I can't believe I used to eat this. For someone else, it would it would create, for someone, not using anyone in particular, but let's use Lewis, for example. The thought of a ham sandwich would spark pleasure. After an espresso coffee and 2 donuts, what would be good right now? A ham sandwich. So it would spark pleasure for him. It's not good or bad. It's just how the consciousness registers these events from the senses. However, then we react upon them. Sometimes what we think is good isn't necessarily good. Sometimes what we think is bad isn't necessarily bad. But because we keep reacting to these, it builds a groove, an energy pattern, an energetic pattern. Every time we smell ham, Pavlov's dog, literally, we run out and we make ourselves a ham sandwich. Every time we get a craving, we do that craving. Every time we have an aversion, we move away from something. Sometimes we have an aversion for things that might end up being very good for us. But because the aversion's there, we never give it a chance. We back away from it. Doesn't matter either way, though. The point is, we are reactionary. Lewis says, it was like sin inside my mouth. I'm partial. This is the vegan golden age. Vegan burgers, vegan donuts, vegan, if you name it. If it was junk food that I ate 15 years ago when I wasn't a vegan, there's junk food now that's vegan that I can eat now. My diet's been really clean for just about 2 years. Almost the exact same thing every day. That's how boring I actually am. Sort of working on taming the senses just a bit. And again, getting away from that reactivity where because I crave something doesn't necessarily mean I have to go out and get it. Doesn't mean I can't, but when you shine some awareness to that craving itself, just the very act of being aware to the craving, to the origin of the craving, knowing that it's a reactionary event to something that has stimulated the senses, then I have that freedom. I have liberation. I'm responding instead of reacting, which I find fascinating. That my entire life I thought I had this freedom, the choice. I'm choosing this cigarette. I'm choosing this drink. I'm choosing this whatever. I don't want to talk about all the things I may have done in my past, um, but I had some pretty bad habits at one time. Um, Lewis says, "I feel like month one I will only do fruits and vegetables. Um, Not a bad idea. You might want to throw in stuff like some legumes, maybe some whole grains. Uh, Keep your protein up a little bit higher. You do get plenty of protein in fruits and vegetables, but no one really works as hard as you. So you need to make sure that you're shoring things up, getting in a little extra protein for recovery. Maybe even throw in, protein shake of some sort. Um, well, it is what it is. Ask me how do I feel about fish. The funny thing is, I'm 100% vegan. Nothing with that, nothing that ever had a mother, nothing that ever had a face. Whole foods, plant based, 100%. But I don't tell people that's the way they should do it. That's just the way I do it. It's the way Mocha does it as well. Um, I think fish, especially when it's locally sourced. Um, I think the best way to get your protein, if you want to eat meat, if you want to eat fish, hunt for it, fish for it, farm it yourself. But not everyone can do that. So do the best that you can. Fish in the diet is actually not a bad thing at all. Um, the typical traditional yogic diet was lacto-vegetarian, meaning they had milk products, um, but no actual meat. You have the blue zones, which are those areas across the world where people live to mid 90s to 100, being incredibly sharp, incredibly active up until the day they die. And almost exclusively, it's plant based. The difference between plant based and vegan, I don't have any meat product whatsoever. Plant based means the majority of my plate are plants, but it might have some meat, might have some fish, might have an egg, might have some milk, but the majority is from a plant. Health reasons, I think, health reasons, sustainability, ethically, plant based is the way to go. For me, for particular reasons, because when I was younger, I came from a hunting family. I spent some time hunting. I worked in a mule farm for a while. I feel like I have some past sins to make up for. So I'm 100% vegan. I saw how cruel those agribusinesses were, even on a small scale farm, how cruel they can be. And I knew I just had to break out of that cycle. Um, and when I did, I had no intention of going back. Um, let's see. Lewis says, I see that's great what you do, Eric. Thanks. I appreciate that. And do you eat any seedless fruit? I eat a lot of bananas. Easy way to get calories. 100 calories per banana. When I became a vegan, um, I was almost 100% fruitarian. I ran my first 50-mile race as a fruitarian, eating nothing but fruit. And I felt always energetic, always ready to go, always recovered, always hydrated, because fruit's very hydrating. Um, I really eat all kinds of fruit, whatever's available. But again, bananas are a good source of calories. Great for the stuff that I do, the high rep burpees. when you just need to replenish your carb source and you need to get all the minerals back in your system as quick as possible. Eating a banana afterwards is just easy. I'm a huge fan of oatmeal. First thing I eat every morning. Um, Oatmeal, a little bit of flaxseed, bananas, blueberries, walnuts. What else? Dates. Big fan of dates. I got a friend, Facebook friend, Michael Arnstein, who is an outstanding ultra runner. He outright won Vermont 100. I believe he might have been in his early 40s. He's a fruitarian. He won the Hawaiian 100 Hurt Marathon, which is one of the hardest in the world. He won Vermont 100 eating nothing but dates the entire way. He won another race eating nothing but oranges the entire time. This says bananas are amazing. That was my first diet that I ever did, bananas and tuna for 6 months. Wow. That's a pretty tight diet. I could probably could have done something like that at one time. I was shooting for 30 bananas a day when I was a fruitarian, because that would give me just about 3,000 calories. It would give me over 30 grams of protein. It's hard to get that much. In my early 20s and late teens, when I was bodybuilding, I went on a 10,000 calorie a day diet. A lot of supplements. I never made 10,000 calories in a day. But you try for it. And when you try for it, you generally hit 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. I got pretty big. I got up to about 220 pounds eating that. Well, I can't imagine. It is what it is. Says that he weighed 236 pounds. If you guys have never checked out his channel, do so, because he's lean as possible right now. Although I don't know if he lost some of that leanness on the 2 donut and espresso coffee diet. He might be slightly less lean, but even slightly less, I'm sure he's still pretty lean. So 270, 236, and he got down to 170. It's pretty incredible. What do you normally get when you take this time off? How much weight do you generally put on? I've actually dropped a little bit of weight, I believe. I don't weigh myself often, but I feel a little bit lighter. But I'm doing my regular stuff, and I haven't added in 2 sessions of yoga. So I got an early morning yoga session. I got a long hour plus afternoon yoga session, and then I have an evening yoga session. So I feel like that's leaned me out a little bit. Let's see. Lewis says that now he doesn't let himself go above 200. And he's 160 is my yearly goal. Well, so, and how long does it take you to shed that 40 pounds? You usually start January, February. So I'm going to guess you start probably close to 200, 190 plus. How long does it take you to get down to hit that 160? So for diet, it's really about experimenting and finding out what works best for each person. So that's the great thing about being plant-based, is if you want to include some fish, you include some fish. If you want to, I know people who've been vegetarians for years. Barefoot Burpee was a vegetarian for a number of years. I think he said 4 years. And he introduced eggs back in his diet and said he felt better. There's always a way to do that. Destiny Forever Walks, PhD. Once again, at least in the first introduction, I always want to throw in that PhD because it is such an incredible achievement and honor. It takes an awful lot of work to get there. So I like mentioning that in the first introduction as a salute to all of her hard work and what she brings to her channel, what she brings to YouTube and the fitness community. Anyway, she says she is stopping by. Happy Saturday, stopping by to say hello. How are you today? I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. Um, and let's see. We got some hellos going back and forth. Lewis and I have been talking about diet, talking a little bit about yoga, yoga philosophy, yoga psychology, more to the point, and diet, which is interesting. Uh, Lewis has a very interesting approach, both to his workouts and his diet. When I always smile at the comments that people get. I have some friends in the burpee community who never get a single troll or single off-topic comment whatsoever, and they seem to get them every single time. And I don't know why, because I got such a small channel. I don't even have 300 subscribers. You would think that I would go unnoticed by everyone. However, I take it as an honor that anyone shows up here to give it any attention whatsoever. So, anyway, back on topic. Gridiron all day tomorrow. Yeah, football. I guess last week was the first. How are the Raiders doing? Destiny is being courteous, as always, which I appreciate. So, yeah, barefoot was, as it is what it is, says first place AFC West for now. So they won their first game. Hey, you got to start someplace, you know? I have slightly followed baseball this year. And by slightly, I mean looking at the scores when it pops up on my Facebook page, because Baltimore Orioles are doing so well, or at least they were. Hopefully they still are. And the majority of what I follow in football is from my Facebook friends posting updates. And I have some friends who are very Raven obsessed. And when I talk with them, I instantly become a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Not that I follow Pittsburgh Steelers, but I was actually born in Pittsburgh. And in the 1970s, Pittsburgh was the team. Of course, the Raiders were the team too. And it was the Raiders who put Pittsburgh Steelers on the map, with Jack Tatum tipping the ball up in the air and Franco Harris snatching it up for the immaculate reception. For those who are either football history fans or old enough to remember that, and they beat the Raiders. Jack Tatum, up until the day he died, swore he tipped the ball up, but it touched the ground, and Franco Harris picked it up on a bounce. You can watch the tape; it looks pretty clear. Jack Tatum was a savage hitter, by the way. He was called a head hitter quite often. It is what it is. Says that we play the Steelers next weekend, and it's always a dogfight when we play the Steelers. Yeah, it's a long rivalry between those two. And the fact that they were responsible for sending Steelers to the playoffs, probably for the first time in like 30 years or something. And it started that Pittsburgh dynasty that was unstoppable for a decade. Destiny says he used to be a huge NFL football fan. Way back in the day, the Washington Redskins was my favorite team. Well, I'm right in the middle. I'm between Baltimore and DC. So I have friends on both sides of the aisle. Die-hard Redskin fans. Well, actually, what are they called nowadays? I know they're not the Redskins any longer. And I used to watch the occasional Redskin game. I was a fan of. I had a great conversation about football with Lewis a couple weeks ago, and I used up all my football information in one conversation. But I was a huge fan of, as I mentioned to him a while back, more of a fan of players than I am of teams, and I was a big fan of John Riggins. I like that style, the power running back. Same way I was a big fan of Larry Zonka back in the early 70s when they were the only, and I believe still only, undefeated football team, even though it was a strike year. Um, it is what it is. Says salute for using the correct name for the Skins. I don't know their new name actually. I have no trouble with it either way. Whatever, um, you know, whatever the fans pick, and by fans I mean across the board. It's the Commanders. That seems a strange name for a Washington team. I know at one point Washington had the Senators, which was a baseball team. That seemed more fitting, at least. But yeah, I guess, got to pick something. The Redskins never made much sense historically. Um, Miami Dolphins, that makes sense. Baltimore Ravens as a nod to Edgar Allan Poe. My problem with the Ravens, it was heartbreaking for Baltimore when Robert Irsay moved the team. I guess they're now the Indianapolis Colts. When Baltimore lost the Colts, that's the city wept. Baltimore Colts were just synonymous. You could go to a diner in Baltimore City and run into Art Donovan, and he would talk for an hour about football with you. Destiny says, it's the only name I know. It is what it is. I grew up right down the street from the Redskins Stadium. Hey, so you're local. By local, I mean close to me. Maybe half an hour from DC. I'm about 20 minutes or so from Baltimore City. So Baltimore lost its spirit when we lost. I mean, this was Johnny Unitas' team. How do you get rid of Johnny Unitas' team? It's just incredible. Johnny Unitas, by the way, was actually from the Pittsburgh area. The best quarterbacks ever in history all came from that area, all came from the Pittsburgh, Western PA, because there wasn't much there. You worked in the mills or you got good at something and you got out. Joe Namath, Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana. There's a couple that I'm missing, actually. All great quarterbacks from that particular area. And there I am, coming from the same area. And I doubt I could throw a football 20 yards with any accuracy. It might be end over end over end and thud right in front of someone. I played high school football and I was not quarterback material. I was probably more suited to be a statistician type material. Although I loved training, I didn't care anything about football, not even a little bit. The Rams, they left. Yeah, that was a shame as well. Los Angeles Rams was another iconic team. I grew up with those teams. Destiny says that she lived in DC for over 25 years. Now I'm in Florida. So, are you a Dolphin fan now? Miami Dolphins? Oh, who was the Dolphin quarterback? I can't remember. He was from the famous one. He was from Western PA as well, I believe. Dan Marino, I believe he was from. So even if you just had Unitas and Joe Montana, those two. Even if you just had those two from that area, would be enough to put him on the map. Yeah, Dan Marino, who was probably the best quarterback to never win the Super Bowl. Anyway, I could care less about football when I played football. I remember sitting on the bench and my coach saying, we were ahead comfortably. My coach saying, Eric, do you want to get in? And I was like, I'm good. I don't mind sitting on the bench. You guys have fun. But here's the thing. I absolutely love practice. I loved all of it. I loved training. I loved going in the weight room. That was my favorite part. I think that's the only reason I did that, was to make the team, to train, to get in shape, to get out there and practice with my friends, practice with my teammates. But I realized I enjoyed training, but I didn't enjoy playing football, so I'm going to keep training. So I started getting in shape. I was going to enter Teenage Mr. Baltimore, Teenage Mr. Annapolis, and I trained for bodybuilding. I was about 16. I got up to 190 pounds, and I chickened out of competing. At 16, getting up on stage, in a little bitty bathing suit, posing, I just couldn't see myself doing it. I also probably wasn't disciplined enough to do a bodybuilding diet to get cut, to get really defined. Let's see. Destiny says, no Dolphins fan. The Redskins will always live in my heart, no matter where I go. And Lewis says, it's all good, Destiny. Football isn't what it used to be anyway. Yeah. I haven't watched the game in probably well over 20 years, if not longer. And even then, I didn't watch much except for highlight clips. Because as I mentioned, I go back and I watch highlight clips now of the great. Again, how can you not love watching Larry Zonka? Larry Zonka, the only football player, the only running back I've ever seen who literally crossed the field diagonally to hit somebody with the football in hand. He could have went straight and got a touchdown. Instead, he travels across the field just so he could lay someone out with a punch. Well, not a punch, but a forearm shiv. I saw Walter Payton hit someone in the head with a forearm shot and literally split his helmet in half. Jim Brown passed away. Great man all the way across the board. Not just athlete, but a great man. Fought for civil rights. He just passed away, I think, in the last year or so. So I was watching some of his highlight clips. Just amazing. Lewis says hitters are the best. They are, but you know what else? Some people who take a hit and you see him shake it off. Zonka was another one that you would see him take a massive hit and then he would just get up and shake his head and be right back the next play. Jerry Kramer, who was a guard for the Green Bay Packers during their golden years in the mid-'60s, they won the first 2 Super Bowls. But they won a lot of the championship before that, I believe 3 years before that. And Jerry Kramer would play literally with every finger in his hand broken. They'd all be taped together. Just being able to take that kind of punishment, absolutely incredible. Same with hockey. If you ever want to see one of the greatest sports movies ever, Paul Newman, Slapstick. Probably, I was going to say probably the best hockey movie ever, but I can't name another hockey movie. Mighty Ducks, okay, 2. Slapsticks, by far the best. The question would be the best football movie ever made. North Dallas 40? Maybe. That might be up there. North Dallas 40. Nick Nolte, Mac Davis as a football player. Nick Nolte as a football player. Somehow they made it work, though. Surprising. I have these conversations with It Is What It Is, and I find out that I know more about football than I would have thought. It is what it is, says the Mighty Ducks. The name brings back childhood memories. Have you ever seen Slapstick? Awesome movie. Hanson Brothers. If you want to see people out there hitting, just go to YouTube and check out the clips. Click Slapstick or Stop Shot, sorry, and the Hanson Brothers, and you will see them clear the rink of people. Destiny says, probably not. It is what it is. As we grow up and grow older, life takes us away from what we used to do and into new directions, learning new things and new ways. Completely agree. Just amazing how far sometimes we go from that, what we consider a point of origin. I haven't been in a bar in ever, and yet I used to spend every single night in a bar. I used to spend every single night in bars looking for trouble sometimes. Just amazing how drastically life, again, I'm not going to say life changes, how drastically we change as we are life itself. And it just takes its course. But of course, you have to let it. Don't keep dragging yourself back to the same spot. I mentioned earlier my friend Robert Saltzman, who's the author of The 10,000 Things, talks about the awakening experience, where we just become awake to the fact that we are life. We're not separate from life itself. We are life. That's awakening. We're consciousness. We're awareness. What we are aware of is not separate from the awareness itself. And awakening never ends, which means that life is always expanding. We're always becoming something new in every single moment. Every year, I believe it's every year, it might be every 2 years, 98% of every atom that makes up our body is completely replaced. 98%, brand new atoms. So why would we assume that it should always be that same person showing up, matching those same atoms? Expand with life. See where it takes you. It's an absolutely amazing journey from day one, that first breath that we take, to where we are now. And here's the amazing thing, the awareness of taking that first breath. We didn't have any words. We couldn't verbalize it. We didn't have thoughts. But that awareness was present of who we were, awareness of our existence itself, knowing that this aliveness, that we were life. That same awareness was present when we were 14. It was present when we were 24, present when we're 44, present now when I'm 58. It'll be present the day we die. My guess, can't put my finger on it. Duncan Walsh is here. Hey, Duncan. I took some inspiration from you for my workout this morning. I just raised the intensity a bit. 2 sets, 6 minutes, 6 count burpees. Just taking it up a notch, doing some interval stuff. And then I did in between, I did my pull-up couplets. So Destiny says, forgetting those things that are behind us and pressing forward those things that are in front of us. I think the Bible said something like that. Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead, which has often been misconstrued, taken out of context. What he meant was, what is dead is dead. We have the present moment. We have right now. So let what is dead deal with itself. We deal with what we have right now. We don't even have to deal with the future because it's not here yet. We have the present moment, only and always present moment. It is what it is. Says Jesus only ate. I can't quite make out. Tilapia? Is that the fish? Tilapia? Duncan Walsh says, I'm going to count them. Sorry, changing the subject here. It is what it says. Yes, fish. Um, from what I can recall from eating that, it wasn't a very flavorful fish. It took on the flavor of whatever you cooked it with, but by itself, it wasn't a flavorful fish. For me, the fish that I ate when I ate fish, salmon, haddock was my favorite. The ocean, deep water fishes. Duncan, don't worry about changing the subject. We're all over the place, purposely so. We were talking American football just a few minutes ago. With you here, we could talk actual football. But once I mentioned Pele and the Sylvester Stallone soccer movie Victory, I've used L and Ted Lasso. Now I have officially used up all of my soccer information. Carl the Skunk said that he farted. Well, your name is Carl the Skunk. So I'm not sure if everyone watching this realizes that Sylvester Stallone made a soccer movie. Not only that, Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, was in it. Michael Caine, who might be perhaps the greatest living actor that we have right now, was actually one in a movie with Sylvester Stallone, and two in a soccer movie with Sylvester Stallone. The thing is, one, I'm joking about that, but I like Sylvester Stallone, and two, as Duncan said, yes, I saw it. It was a good film. It was a good film. I saw it in the movie theater when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it. Back then, I would watch anything Sylvester Stallone. You know what? I would still watch. I think I watched Expandable 27, the Expandables 27 the other day. I'll still watch anything Stallone did. Escape to Victory. Yes. I think it was released just as Victory here. Maybe. I actually read the book. It was, back then they would do a movie and then they would serialize the book. Back then, anything that inspired me, training wise, working out wise, sports wise, I couldn't get enough of it, actually. Destiny says, I can't remember the last time I ate fish of any kind or any kind of meat. Same here. Actually, the last non-vegan thing I ever ate was salmon, and that was 2010, 2010, 29, 2010. Duncan says that Pele was in it. Yes, he was, and some other notable footballers at the time. I only knew Pele, the only footballer that I knew. A great scene with Pele's overhead kick, which of course they had to show, because back then everyone knew that kick, even if you didn't like soccer. Where I live now and where I grew up, every kid had to play soccer for at least one season. Football, was huge here. I was actually better at football than I was better at American football than I was at soccer, and I sucked at football. So that tells you how good I was playing football. But it's a lot of fun. But yeah, they had to show. Every kid knew that kick. The look on the face of the German general who then clapped. Well, yeah, no matter who you are, you had to be inspired by something like that. Although, of course, in real life, you had the Germans witness the great Jesse Owens, um, and they were not impressed. They were not impressed because he was just so ahead of everyone else. Um, you can make the case that Jesse Owens might have been the greatest athlete of the 20th century. Some might say Jim Thorpe. I'm going to go with Jesse Owens. But, well, I can't believe I've actually had a American football and British football conversation in one actual conversation. It's more sport talk than I've participated in. Almost joke. Actually, Lewis and I had probably a good hour's worth of football talk a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure. I told Mocha about that, and she's like, you talked about football for an hour. And it's like, hey, I'd still have some. Her and I have been in one form or another together for almost 22 years. I still have some surprises for her. She doesn't know everything about me. She thinks she does. Duncan says, interesting that in the 1936 Olympics, there was a guy who broke the 100-meter record. I can't imagine what that was back then. Was it under 10? I miss the days when people were slower. Because then I stood a chance against them. Not really, because I was just as slow back then. But remained in his life completely anonymous. Yeah, it's funny how just certain things, make you stand out, and others, you just, for whatever reason, sometimes you have that breakthrough moment in the Olympics. We were talking about American football not being the same. Duncan says because he very narrowly lost. Think of Roger Bannister. Two other people were battling to break the 4-minute mile, and all of them extremely close. Actually, the other two probably had a better shot at doing it before Roger Bannister. I can't remember their names. And within weeks of Bannister finally doing it, both of them ended up breaking and surpassing Roger Bannister's feat. Sports across the board is just a wonderful thing to witness when people are just so phenomenally good at what they do. Billy Mills won the Native American, won the 10K event, 10,000 meter event. I can't remember the year. I think it might have been 64. He won a gold medal in borrowed shoes. He couldn't find his track shoes. He borrowed someone else's, and they were ill-fitting. And he ended up winning the race. Pretty incredible. Duncan, have you ever seen the hockey movie Slapshot? I've been recommending that to Lewis. Duncan says, in other words, he broke the world record, yet he came second in that race. Owens became legendary. The other guy, anonymous. Yeah. Those are the breaks. You got someone like Jesse Owens, who just head and shoulders above everyone, and they garner that attention, deservedly so. Not that the other one. Slapshot. It's a hockey movie. SLAP. Probably not many people outside of the United States watched it. Well, Canada. Speaking of hockey, speaking of USA, I remember being outside in 1980, and a friend came running out announcing that the United States beat the Soviet Union. 1980 gold medal in hockey. It's a great hockey movie. Again, not that I can name. I can only name two. Lewis and I we had the Mighty Ducks and we had Slapshot. It is what it is. Ask Eric, is yellow your favorite color? Actually, no, green's my favorite color. But a particular green. The deep green of late spring. Duncan asks, hey, did you catch my philosophical quip at the end of my chat in the last post? No, but I have it up. I listened to your introduction, and then I started my workout, and I went out for a run and a walk with Mocha, and I came back to finish watching it, and haven't gotten through it yet, but I will. I was thinking, again, I used your workouts as an inspiration for my own this morning, and I'm going to try to do the same thing with Navy SEALs. I'm going to do 2 short sets. It is what it is, says Duncan fell in love with 5 pumps. Beast mode Duncan. Yeah, I saw that you added those in. You did what I wanted to check. I didn't make it that far because I know you were talking 6 counts. And we had this discussion yesterday, 6 counts versus 1 pumps. Lewis is the master of the 5 pump. None better, in my opinion. So, yeah, my next Navy SEAL session, I might do something similar. Or my next time I take a easier session, I might do something. Yeah, you definitely set something off, Lewis. He says that Duncan's last 3 videos have had 5 pumps. 5 pumps with something extra. Because there's always that, always the explosive leg finisher at the end. Because you can't let it alone. You can't do the 5 pumps and say, that was good for today. He has to do the 5 pumps and say, you know what? It needed a little extra jump. It needed a little more explosiveness. Which is amazing. To me, to be that explosive at this point in your life, and by that I don't mean age-wise, but after decades of being at the top of your game as an athlete, and to still be able to maintain that explosiveness now, to me, is phenomenal. Duncan says, I'm working on Destiny session next. I saw that that you inspired her singing in the rain on the treadmill, which was a great song, and Destiny did it justice. Very nicely done. And Duncan said that trying to get more explosive, admirable. You know what? When I was training kettlebell sport, which I did for a decade, I felt very explosive. And when I went into ultra running, that explosiveness and the strength endurance that I gained from kettlebell sport carried over a great deal. But after a decade of ultra running, it seemed to eat up a lot of the explosiveness. I tried to maintain some speed and some explosiveness by doing 5Ks and 10Ks as part of my training. But I should have kept in probably some maybe some light Olympic lifting just to keep that. It is what it is. Asks, have you won best, Duncan or Eric, for your burpees? I have. A little over a year ago, it was actually a big thing. People in the community doing a lot of vest work, and I did. I don't like it because it changes the nature of the movement for me. Um, if I'm going to do something with weights, I'd rather do something with weights, with the exception being weighted dips, weighted pull-ups. But for the burpee movement itself, I thought it was more of a hindrance and had a greater risk than reward for doing it. Just my opinion. I know Iron Wolf is huge doing vest work. Max started doing vest work, and I think he quickly found, Busy Dad, I think he quickly found that it wasn't the best use of weight. Let's see. Duncan says that he's being called for dinner. Speak to you guys soon. Thanks for joining in, Duncan. Actually, I'm going to end the conversation now as well. I got to get back to some classwork. I'm actually signing up for a new class as well this evening. Destiny is saying, yes, Duncan, you did inspire me to dance to Singing in the Rain on the treadmill. And I did. I think you missed it. If you missed it, Duncan, check it out. A very joyful, energetic dance. Great song. Great singer. Tribute to Gene Kelly, who was an incredible dancer. It is what it is. That says, have a good day. He's talking about wearing ankle. I remember seeing you do ankle weights a few times, I believe. So, all right, guys. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. See you guys tomorrow morning for some burpees and the afternoon for some more talk. I need to go and learn some more football so I can keep up with Lewis, keep up these conversations. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm even going to check out the Raiders tomorrow in your honor. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Destiny says, thanks, Eric, and to everyone for the chat. I always love our fellowship and conversation. I do as well. Thank you again for joining, Destiny. You have a good day. Lewis, I'll talk to you later. Take care.